Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Fiber to Fashion webinar on production planning excellence. Joining me today is David Lush, the Solutions Consulting Director for Coates Digital, and my name is Wesley Ekman. I'm the Global Sales Head. Today's agenda, we'll be giving you a bit of insight into who Coates Digital is. We're going to frame the industry context and the challenges that are so critical to improving your planning. We're going to cover off the impacts of manual planning that most of you are experiencing today. We're going to dive in to Fast React and a quick highlight key features demo, and then we're going to come out, cover off business benefits, and open up to a Q&A session where we'll take questions from the audience. Coates Digital, we are a global software business as part of the Coates Group. We are industry experts, we are technology leaders, and we have been working with brands and manufacturers over the last 40 years to help them transform their talent, their technology, and their textiles. We all know that over the last 3 years, the industry has faced unparalleled volatility. We have seen supply chain disruption on a global scale, and the complexity that has put on the global economy, as well as the prices for raw materials and labor costs. We've seen those exponential increases in our baseline costs, and we've also seen that there has been massive complexity coming through in terms of brands, retailers, managing their risk and having to distribute orders for nearshoring, onshoring, as well as their standard manufacturing locations. The rise of order fragmentation and style complexity means that manufacturers have to deal with a lot more newness and a lot smaller runs, which means efficiencies have been greatly impacted. And the rise of on-demand agile production, that just-in-time, make-to-order model is becoming more and more of a requirement for many brands trying to get a handle on their growing inventory. All of this comes down to the complexity and your ability to plan, but not just plan, the ability to replan. So just to recap, supply chain massively disrupted. Raw material and labor costs have increased exponentially. There is greater order fragmentation and style complexity. And the driver of on-demand agile production means that as planners, as businesses, as manufacturers, you have less time to get it right, less time to meet customer expectations. And one mistake could throw out your entire profitability. What I'm going to do now is hand over to David Lush to talk through some of the contributors to productivity lost within RMG manufacturing.
Yes, hello all. Over the next few slides, we will have a look at the impacts of what efficiency loss means. Once we've then been through those slides, we will then go into a solution demo, which will be, as Wes has said, followed by a question and answer session at the end. So in this slide, we are going to look at some of the factors that affect productivity and profitability. So in our experience, costings are done with an assumed efficiency, which is typically done based on historical production information. And this is often reduced to win orders as garment prices are under constant pressure. In this specific example, we have taken a 3,000 piece garment order costed at 80% efficiency, which equals a planned cost of $1.08 per piece, with a total manufacturing cost of $3,240. Some areas that would affect this are planning at style with multiple colours, because this leads to not knowing what colours can start production and when, based on pre-production and bill of material status. This then often leads to last-minute changes in the plan. In addition to planning by style with multiple colours, the pre-production and material targets are often driven from the shipment date, which is a static date and doesn't consider actual production start dates. Therefore, targets are always generic. Last-minute changes, or when last-minute changes occur, this will not be reflected within the plan. These last-minute changes that I've referred to then often mean that styles have to be produced on sewing lines that aren't as well suited as other sewing lines, which typically means that production takes longer, with more risk of substandard output and maybe even rework. Further impacts for poor efficiency include increased cost of materials due to recuts and rework, which could result in reduction in worker morale through more rework and less OT available. High cost of air shipments to ensure that they catch the shipment date, and a low supplier rating with brands and or retailers. So in reality, when you consider typical efficiency loss issues, a 3,000 piece garment order achieving a 50% efficiency rather than an 80% has a substantial value. The total estimated manufacturing cost has gone from $3,240 to an actual manufacturing cost of $5,190, which is a significant difference. So stop wasting time and start increasing your performance. So in Fast React Plan, we have a highly visual dynamic planning tool that primarily focuses on capacity, pre-production, and MRP, which is material requirement planning. Fast React Plan is a market-leading production planning solution, which is designed and developed specifically for apparel, footwear, and textile manufacturers, and used successfully in hundreds of factories around the world. Typical business benefits include OTDP, increasing in productivity, which would therefore have a knock-on effect to a reduction in lead time. So, when we refer to production planning, the first thing that springs to mind is macro and micro planning at different levels. The next thing that springs to mind are pre-production, also known as critical path, as well as bill of materials. And when you consider critical path or bill of materials, I always think about setting targets, and lots of them. The accuracy of these targets are critical to your business satisfaction and your business's profitability. Planning in Fast React Plan can improve the overall efficiency by making sure that orders are planned and produced in the most efficient lines possible with the least amount of style changes, considering pre-production and your bill of material needs. So for today's demo, we are going to look at capacity planning, both at a macro and micro level, and how we incorporate pre-production and MRP status. So it's at this point that we're going to go into a fast react plans solution demo. It's also at this point that I will stop sharing my camera. So fast react plan is a server-based system which is based on concurrent users. Each concurrent user has their own username and password. When we log in, the first planning board I'm going to show is what we refer to as the macro level planning board. And you can see that this allows us to load versus capacity of different factories in different locations. Those different locations, in this case, being cities in different countries. This numerical value here is the capacity available per location. You'll notice across the top that we have different views. So I'm currently looking at this by month. We could view by week. We could view by day. My preference is month. So you'll then notice that in the capacity bucket, we have different colors. Different colors represent different meanings. So light blue means that we are under capacity, with the capacity being a value that we set within system. So light blue is telling us that we are less than 75%. And I can see the load in the top left-hand corner. So we have 540,000 minutes available in Chittagong in April, but we have loaded 171,849, which means we are 32% loaded. Green means that we are within an acceptable limit. And you can see again that we have 475,200 minutes available, and we have loaded 413,140 in Jan, which means we have an 87% load. Anything which is then overloaded, but within a tolerance that we say is acceptable, maybe because we can bring in workers from other locations within the same country, or maybe we can fulfill through OT, we have as yellow. If you look at the top left-hand corner, it's showing slightly overloaded. However, if we perceive load more than capacity that we just cannot fulfill, it will show in pink. So from the macro level planning board, I can see across all my different locations, the load versus the capacity quite clearly. We also have different views that allow us to look at what orders make up those loads within the different capacity buckets. You'll also notice that there's a darker shade and a lighter shade. The darker shade is telling us that the load is fulfilled through confirmed orders. The lighter shade is indicating that there are unconfirmed orders, and they could be projection, they could be booking, they could be speculative. Whatever the unconfirmed status, it is a consolidation of all of that. So very, very quickly looking at this view, assuming I'm a CEO, COO, sales director, I can see that for the next 2 months, assuming that I'm working on a 60-day lead time, that my all locations are more or less fully loaded with confirmed orders. However, from month 3 onwards, so 75-day lead times, 90-day lead times, 120-day lead times, we still have orders in there that are not confirmed. From the macro level planning board, we then go into more detail, and we have what's called a micro level planning board. So you would have noticed that we had different locations. One was Dongguan, one was Shenzhen. What we've done in this example is now consolidate different cities in different countries within one low level planning board. So you'll see on the left-hand side here that we have different sewing lines, again, different capacities, albeit the capacity this time within this kind of planning board are the amount of sewing machines available. So we've got Dongguan, we've got 6 sewing lines, and in Shenzhen, we've got 4 sewing lines. You'll notice again that there's a date scale across the top because this is looking in more detail. I want to have I want a daily view now. So this is looking daily and looking over an 8-week view. You'll notice that we have rectangles on the planning board. These rectangles are what we call orders, and they are a combination of style and order. Strip lengths will vary, obviously depending on the SMV. It will depend on the planned quantity. It will then depend on the sewing machines available by sewing line, as well as any efficiencies applied. You'll notice that different orders have different colors. One of Fast React's many good features is that different colors indicate different status. So as a planner, as a production person, even as a C-level executive, should they open this planning board, they can see very quickly and easily the status of their orders. If it's grey, it has no problems. If it's yellow or orange, it has a pre-production problem. And as I mentioned, one of the areas that we want to focus on is pre-production. So I can see here as a planner that I've made my plan for 6 lines in Dongguan, 4 lines in Shenzhen, for as much as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks plus in advance. Most of the orders are grey, which means there are no problems. That's fine. But now I want to be proactive with my time, and I want to focus my time and effort on trying to fix orders that have problems. So when we look at some of these orders, and when we now consider pre-production, we can see a list of outstanding events. We can see a list of people who are responsible. We can see a list of relative to and offsets. So Fast React is automatically linking these events to a specific person, to a specific production start point. So as and when your production changes, so will the target. So it's focused very much on just-in-time, lean manufacturing concepts. Likewise, there are more outstanding events here, and we have an option in system that says we can link one, which is critical to production start, and highlight that in orange. So yellow and orange are pre-production issues. Orange just indicates that it's a more critical to production start issue. Now, I've shown you the macro level planning board. I'm showing you the micro level planning board. I now want to show you that if you're a merchandiser or a salesperson, we have what's called a pre-production planning board. So planning is not just a tool for a planner or Fast React plan. It's not just a tool for a planner. Salespeople, procurement, merchandisers, whoever is responsible for any pre-production activity has their own planning board within system. And if you want to consider some of those orders which I've just shown there, we can see that it's now brought me a list of all events for that specific order. So you've got event names on the left, you've got people who are responsible, you've got the order number, you've got the target dates, you've got expected dates, you've got the event date it was done, and you've got an event days late. So if it has a tick, it means it's been complete. If it has like a dartboard icon, it means it's incomplete. But if it's a green tick, it means it was completed on time. If it's a red tick, it means it was completed late. So I want to now look at those outstanding events, and I want to say that the fabric is being received as expected on the 6th of the 1st, on the 6th of the 1st. But because it's been completed late, the system is asking me to enter a reason. So there's transparency within the business to understand why the fabric is being received late. I want to say in this case, it's because of a supplier delay. I also want to try and fix the problem of fabric inspection. So if I look at this, I can see that the standard offset is 4 days. Well, I've spoken with the guys in the stores, and they've told me that they probably don't need 4 days for this order. We could do it in 2 days. So there's an option there on a case by case, event by event basis to change offsets. And then date. So you can now see that from all the outstanding events, and if you remember, outstanding events are determined by that dartboard effect, we've now managed to fix most of those problems. If we then look at the other order, the second order, which I showed you, PO, memory's not great, getting a bit older. We look at PO 1148. Here we can see now that same kind of concept, but what we want to say is that fabric inspection has failed. It's happened, however, it is failed. So we want to enter a failed note, and we want to say fabric inspection. So we can update, we can say, that's again, it's a supplier problem, but we can also enter an expected date for that now. So we could put this as, say, because it's got to be reordered, it would be in this time. So we've looked at those orders. We've looked at the events of those. We've shown how anyone who's responsible for pre-production events would view and update and communicate those events through their own planning board called the pre-production planning board. There is also another method. There's an internal chat method within the system, so I can send Tony a message saying that for PO 111 orange for fabric receipt, I can then send him this is now updated. I can send Tony, so just like Zoom, just like Teams, Skype, there's an internal chat option within Fast React Plan. So anytime the person who's getting that chat logs in, they will receive the message. So when we now log in, we can see that against the events that there have been certain updates that have taken place. And there's also the ability to send notes or add audit trails to those specific events. The last item that we said we were going to show was MRP. So how do we incorporate the bill of materials against orders within our plan? So there is a rotation that allows us to view by material, and again, different colors represent different meanings. So there are different colors now. Blue means that the bill of materials have been issued. Dark green means that the materials are in stock. Light green means that the materials have been ordered and will arrive in time for production start. Yellow means that they've been ordered but are arriving later than production start. And red indicate that they have not yet been ordered. So if we look at this example, PL1051, we can see that it has carton label attached, it has a fabric, it has different packaging trims, and it has different size zips. We can see based on the consumption that's been applied, multiplied by the planned quantity, that the system has generated a total requirement per bill of material. You'll see that Fast React has got different stock levels, which would typically come from your ERP system. So a requirement versus stock gives us a good indication of the status, which, as I've said, equals the different colors. Now, if we wanted to then drill down, we can then see just how much of these materials are being used on what days. We can also see different stock levels in different locations. However, because I'm only focusing on Dongguan, the requirement versus stock would only be a comparison between what's needed in Dongguan, what's in stock in Dongguan. So we can then not only query the bill of material status by order, but we can actually query the bill of material status as a reference. So if we took, for example, FB, what was it, 939, we can see here that this is being used over many days in Dongguan. There are many requirements. There are some shortfalls, there are some expedites, and there are some purchases. So we can see here that there are different orders needing this bill of material, and once again, it gives a clear purchasing requirements. What we'll also be able to do is allocate based on a first come, first served basis. So when we look at PO1051, this uses the same bill of material as PO1001. So if I was to replan this here, rerun the material calculation, you can see that this has now gone from being red to green. And that's an automatic allocation based on a first come, first serve. So the ability for the planner to understand the pre-production status and the material status and still have a good, efficient plan is huge. So that's practically the end of the demo, but I did just want to summarize what we've shown. So in our experience, the manual and disconnected systems used by many manufacturers to manage business critical processes are no longer sustainable. Any manufacturer needs fast, detailed, and accurate planning of capacity across multiple processes, with materials and pre-production activities dynamically driven on a lean pull basis based on the latest plan. Fast React Plan is the market leading apparel production planning software solution, supporting a faster, more reliable order confirmation process and production plan, which is optimized for delivery, speed, and efficiency. I would hope I've shown that the highly visual, flexible, drag and drop approach to planning allows effective master planning across multiple factories, as well as fast, detailed, and accurate scheduling of manufacturing lines and machines. The pre-production activities and material requirements are dynamically driven by the latest plan on a lean, just-in-time basis, supporting the reduction of inventory and lead time. So that's the end of my demo. I'm going to share my video again and stop sharing screen as Wesley will share his.
Yeah, we're already sharing screen there, Dave. Good, so thank you for that wrap up. What we're going to do is just spend a couple minutes just talking through one of our best case studies. So VT Garments is a global manufacturer of outerwear, sportswear, and protective equipment. They operate in 2 key regions, Thailand and Myanmar, and have over 2,000 employees, 25 sewing lines, and roughly produce around 136,000 pieces per month. When we first engaged with them over, 15 months ago, we found that, like many of you on the call today, they had a lack of automation and challenges around real-time visibility of information. Made them sluggish. It made firefighting a daily activity and was very, very time consuming and often led to inaccurate capacity plans. The symptoms of that, or the results of that, was really around late deliveries, additional overtime, lost business and lost customers due to the inability to respond, poor customer satisfaction levels, and just simply across the business, wasted resources, and ultimately at the end of the day, decreased profitability. We engaged with VT to have a look at how we could improve their processes, how we can simplify, how we can standardize, and then most importantly, how we can systemize. We provided a comprehensive production planning solution. We looked at automating their planning processes. We created highly visual capacity plans, the ones that Dave just showed you, and we were able to train the team in interpreting that data, sharing that data, and collaborating against that data to ensure that they were more effective, more efficient, and at the end of the day, plans were accurate and realistic, both for their customers as well as for their production teams. What did we see? We saw an increase in productivity by 95%. Now, this is one of our outliers. We do have great results in other areas, but this really was a standout for us. We saw a plan accuracy improvement of about 92%. And the greatest telltale sign for us of success in planning in this implementation was a 50% increase in the on-time delivery performance. Guys, technology is here. It's not coming. The modern reality of businesses is that we need to systemize. We need to invest in technology. We need to enable people to have the right information at the right time to make an informed decision. That's where innovation comes from. That's where progress comes from. Stop wasting time and start automating your planning with Fast React Plan. We're going to jump out now, guys, and we'll start taking some questions. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and we look forward to answering your questions and engaging with many of you after this webinar. All right, good. We'll jump on to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, what we'll do here, guys, please submit it on the Q&A section of the webinar, and we'll run through those questions and answer as many as we can. But if we don't get through all of them, we'll be sharing our contact details. Feel free to reach out, email us, and we'll get back to you, or one of the teams across the globe will get back to you. Let's have a quick look here. So we have one question. So ERP or production planning first? It's an excellent question, that. So Dave, do you mind if I take that one?
No. Sure, help yourself.
So the road to digitization is an interesting one. And of course, as businesses, you need to understand where your priorities are. Now, I come from an ERP background, and ERPs are categorically the starting point or the mechanism for end-to-end digital transformation. They cover finance, they cover HR, warehousing, inventory. They cover so much of those processes around a business, but they are big and they are complex, and they do take time to implement across the business, and it is a very big project. It's a project that must be done. Any modern business having an ERP in place is quite simply table stakes. However, as garment manufacturers, we have to recognize, finance is not necessarily where our complexity lies. Inventory is not exactly where our complexity lies. As garment manufacturers, production planning and managing the ability, or having the ability to not just plan, but replan based on, live events, based in changes in, shipping, changes in the customer requirements. Those all have to be kind of dealt with. And for us, when we've seen in both scenarios, ERP first and FRP first, I think FRP first is a project that is quick. It's easy to implement. It's easy to adopt. It's only limited in essence to your planning team, and you see much quicker results. Once you have planning stability, once your team is able to kind of digitally navigate the plan, the rest of the business is, easy. It's easier for them to follow suit. So I thought I'd just quickly take and answer that question. So other questions popping up here. Let's have a read. So Stan Titus, can FRP work with Odoo ERP? Dave, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, sure. So I think in principle, as long as any ERP can export the data that has been determined as needed, yes. So I've worked with FRPlan for many years. I've done integrations with ERP systems such as ERP, Info, Oracle, even in-house developed ERP systems. And I've never ever come across a system or an ERP system where we can't integrate. So I think the answer is yes, as long as the Odoo ERP can export and import the data.
And that applies for all ERPs, Dave. And we've done many integrations into SAP, Microsoft, Sage, Info. So we certainly have some experience in combining the two systems and making sure that there is backward and forward information.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. So I see no name, but it says GSL113. Hi, any production monitoring? So is this also possible in FRP? And then a further follow-up question, hourly production, live monitoring, is this in the planning software? So if I had to kind of glean what you're asking for there, is there a shop floor monitoring so that feeds back into the plan? So Dave, I'll take that question. So guys, in Fast React Plan, there is no standard functionality to, monitor in live real time the status of production and feed that back into the system. However, we do have another application which we haven't touched on today called ResQ. It's a full end-to-end shop floor control system. It does certainly provide you with, an MES, shop floor control, quality control systems or applications, line balancing, and will feed back and integrate back into Fast React Plan. But we'll maybe save that one for another webinar on another day. Dave, a bit of a technical question here. Is there any way to highlight the strips in different colors if it is coming before the PCD, the production cut date?
So the short answer is yes, and that would typically be done through the pre-production events that have been set within the system. So yes.
Good, thank you, Dave. Question from Samira. I am new in the fashion industry. Would this be useful for a newly launched factory? So I'll take that one, Dave, if that's okay. Guys, the reality is we live in a digitized world. We are connected as individuals to our mobile devices, our networks, our lives, our emails, our business, our personal. It's all managed through them. Take that device away and where are we? We're disconnected. When we look at our businesses, why would you want anything less than the same for our businesses? Why would you not want digitized processes, automatic access to real-time data, and the insights needed to make informed decisions, especially if you're launching a new factory, especially if you're stepping into a new environment? Why pay the school fees? Why make the mistakes and learn the hard way when out of the box you get best practice processes, best practice expertise and experience through Coach Digital's consulting team? And number one, you start off with a system that has automated processes, reports, insights, and dashboards that'll just make your life so much easier. All right, excellent. A question from Muhammad Askari. He says he's from a denim apparel unit. What should be productivity of apparel unit? What should be the target OEE, availability, performance, quality? Dave, would you like to handle that one?
Yeah, so I think this is quite a hard question because I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. I think each manufacturer will have certain conditions that they are operating in. So what should be productivity of an apparel unit? I think if you ask most companies, they'd say 100. I think achieving that, though, is quite tough. I think what's more important is understanding what your productivity is now, and then setting aside goals that help you to achieve better productivity results. And I firmly believe that it's about the small steps. So you're never going to go from, say, 70% to 90 in one shot, but there is more chance of going from 70 to 90 with a clear defined set of goals that have actions, owners, dates with over a certain time. So that may be 1 year, could be 18 months. So I haven't really answered what should productivity of an apparel unit be, as I think that really depends on many different factors, but I hope I've answered. that productivity improvement should be always looked at. You should understand what productivity you're currently achieving and then set yourself goals with smart principles of achieving better.
Okay. So thank you for that, Dave. So there's two questions here that seem to be fairly similar. Let me just make sure. Okay, so Cheryl, you've asked how much the investment is. Then there's an anonymous attendee who said, India is a price-sensitive market. How is Coats Digital going to be a cut above the rest versus ERP, PLM service providers? So let me answer that in a single question. So when we look at the second question last, so ERP, PLM providers, you need to understand these are very large end-to-end business systems. End-to-end business systems. Their implementations touch many people across the organization. So they are large, they are complex, and they are time consuming. In that, there is more chance of, delays in go live, in executing against the original scope, the original project plan. And typically, even if everything goes well, let's say a 12 to 24 month ERP implementation, you're probably looking at an equal amount of time, another 12 to 24 months before you truly start seeing that return on investment. It takes a very long time to settle down and to ensure that everybody has transformed to that digital product, because we are people. We're afraid of change. We have fears, doubts, worries. Is Excel just better to use than, this brand new big system? Am I going to be monitored? Am I going to be replaced? And so with ERPs and bigger implementations, there are a lot more people, and so a lot more change management is needed. When you look at a product like FRP, as I said, planners, they're dealing with this complexity already. They've created more complexity than what FRP is, because they're managing multiple spreadsheets across multiple people and having to link all of that information back together. So let's bring this all home into how much is the investment. Guys, it is not about the initial CapEx investments. It's not about the initial month-to-month cost fee, but where you have that intersection of your return on investments. If you're able to, like the case study that we showed you there on VT, improve your on-time delivery performance by 50%, improve your productivity by 95%, what are you doing? You're increasing your output with the exact same amount of resources. You're adding a marginal amount to your operating cost, and your exponential increase in productivity means greater output, which means greater revenue, which means greater profitability. And that means that you get your money back far faster. In terms of your change management, it is limited to only a few people within the business. And it acts as a North Star for any further digital transformation projects that you want to do, like an ERP, like an PLM. So it is not about a destination, digital transformation. It's a journey. And on those journeys, you've got to tackle the priorities first. So in terms of the investment, it's different for every single business, based on your size, based on your complexity, and based on what you want to get out of the system. All right, excellent. Hope that answers that question. So, I love it. We'll deal with some difficult ones here, Dave. So there were two questions. Again, I'll concatenate them. The screen looks a little bit old. Do you have any plans to change to the web to improve accessibility? And another question, which is, when is FRP going to be in the cloud? Dave, would you like to handle that, or would you prefer that I do?
I think it's probably better if we answer that as a team, Wes. I think what I can say is that we are due to release FR Plan Web relatively soon. So obviously on the old screen look, I think it's worth remembering as well that Fast React Plan as an application is 24 years old. I think it was first developed back in 1999. So It is quite old. Back in around about 2018, I think we agreed that we would launch a web version, which would be launched sometime this year. In terms of when, I think that's probably better answered from yourself, Wes.
Thank you, Dave. Much appreciated on the handover.
No problem.
If we know we are focused specifically on FR Plan today, but as Coach Digital, we have a number of different applications. So we not only have Fast React Plan for planning, we've got GSD Cost for costing and industrial engineering. We have Fast React, Fast React Fabric, for materials handling and planning around the cutting room, planning around procurement. We've got a PLM solution, and we've got ResQ shop floor. So in effect, you know, when we look at the end-to-end transformation of our business, the applications all need to go into the cloud. So where are we today? We've got PLM in the cloud, we've got ResQ in the cloud, we've got GSD in the cloud, and we've recently just launched Fast React Fabric in the cloud. This FRP is our big mama. It is so complex. And as Dave said, we are launching a live light version this year, and probably looking at the end of 2024 for an enterprise version that would be akin to the same functionality that you've just seen today. But for those of you with simplified requirements, we could be doing a show and tell to you by the end of this next second quarter. So I hope that answers the question from there. So I see, Fitsum, you've asked a question. I am from Ethiopia, and I want to know your plan to expand your system to my country. What an excellent question, because I think it doesn't just cover your country, Ethiopia, but how do we service different countries around the world with the application? So first and foremost, Coats and Coats Digital is a global business. We have been in this industry for 260 years as far as the Coats Group is concerned. We're the leading thread manufacturer around the globe, and Coats is part of that organization. So likewise, we're in every country from China all the way through to Southeast Asia, and we talk about Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, to South Asia, such as Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and we have teams that operate in Egypt as well as Turkey. So we have teams that are able to service you and see you live as well as online in your country. So in Ethiopia, we have implementations that we've done there. We've done implementations in Kenya. We've done implementations out in all across Africa, South Africa, and obviously Egypt, Jordan, and the Middle East. So we're certainly able to kind of meet you wherever you are. We cover multiple languages within the system, and we've got support teams that work in your time zones to make sure that you can ask and have questions answered. All right, so one quick question. So from Akinda Fernando, can we link a third-party tool that we use to trigger style similarity to FR and let FR auto-plan based on that similarity? Dave? Question.
Yeah, it sounds as though you're asking if Fast React Plan has some sort of AI tool. At the moment, no. But what Fast React Plan does have is an automated planning tool at both high level and low level, and there are sets of rules that can be defined. So as long as those rules are applied within system, we can auto load orders, whether it be at high level or low level, based on a set of rules.
Okay, great. Guys, we've got a couple more minutes to handle questions. So Olusegun from Nigeria, you constructing a plant. Guys, please reach out to us directly after this. We've got so much advice, especially if you're starting out new, you're building new infrastructure, getting your planning right first is going to be an absolute game changer. Likewise with Koa out in Vietnam. Likewise, please get in touch with us. We'll post our details at the end of this presentation. The anonymous attendee, FRP pricing. Is it a one-time or is it subscription? Good question. So I'll take that one. So at current, we have a perpetual pricing model, which means that there is an initial CapEx investment for the software as well as the implementation. But as we move into the cloud, we will be moving to a subscription model, but we can talk about what your preference is, and we are fairly flexible given that we're trying to evolve this entire industry. Definitely implementation, guys, is a once-off fee. An implementation covers everything from training, it covers everything from scoping, blueprinting, implementation support, project management, and then the post-go live support that we provide to make sure that not only is the system implemented on time and against that scope, but post that you have access to consultants for at least a 3 to 6 month period to make sure that the system that you've bought is being used for the purposes that you've bought it. I see a question from Gamika. Do you have a module for a retailer or a brand? Dave, I'm going to hand this question over to you because it's quite an interesting one.
Yeah. It would really depend on what kind of module you're talking about. We do have a brands team, and we are releasing a brands application this year. So in principle, yes, but I think we need to understand more about what you're requesting specifically for a retailer or a brand. If it's something like a vendor management inventory system, no. If it's more about having the supply chain visibility, yes.
Okay. So one last question, Dave, and I think this is a good one to end off on. So Anik out of Bangladesh asked what process, should apply for woven garments. So as opposed to answering that question directly, Dave, can you cover off the different scenarios, different garments that FRP can be used in?
Fast React Plan can basically be used in any manufacturing instance. So it could be apparel, it could be footwear, it could be textiles, and we have the ability to plan multiple planned processes. So, for example, in the apparel industry, it could be sewing and washing. In the textile industry, it could be knit, dye, and print. It could be knit, dye, and sew. Within footwear, it could be sewing and assembly. We've even done systems that plan outsole molding, sewing, and assembly. So Fast React Plan, providing you have what we would call work content, so SMV or takt time, for that particular process, and therefore can provide us, which would then provide you with an accurate-ish strip length within Fast React Plan, please assume that we can plan that process.
Okay, excellent. So guys, we're going to call time there. If we didn't get to your question, apologies. There are a number of them on the Q&A session. We've done our best to cover all of it, but we also want you to be left wanting to know a little bit more and to reach out to us. So just quickly sharing my screen, guys, we've got the final slide here. Oh, why is that getting in the way? So Guys, reaching out to us, you can go through our regular marketing email if you want to know a little bit more, if you want some brochures, if you want some case studies, if you want some white papers on Fast React Plan. Alternatively, you can email either David or myself directly, and that would be our first name dot our surname at coats.com. So david.lush@coats.com and wesley.ekman@coats.com. We really appreciate the time that you've taken out today to, be part of this webinar. We look forward to continuing many of the conversations and having a few more rounds of questions and answers. If there are any other applications that you're interested in, such as GSD, such as PLM, such as the Fast React Fabric solution, please make sure you reach out to us and we can arrange either another webinar session, or we can directly engage one-to-one with you and your associates at your business. And we just want to say thank you again for your time. Thank you to Fiber to Fashion for hosting us, and we hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you, Dave, for your time, and for everybody that's supported this call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.